I got kicked out of a Catholic church by the priest himself for doing what I was told to do. Priest wasn't doing his job properly. If anything, he should have taken the chance to make you feel wanted and welcome in case you might reconsider. I went to confess my sins, and the priest told me never to step foot in his church again. You are pretty badass. Up. When I had to do my first penance, I think I was about 10 years old. My mind went blank. My catechism class lined up to confess to the bishop and I couldn't think of anything to say, so I was asking the other kids what they were going to say. Finally it popped into my head that I could make up a few sins and then the last one would be that I had lied. I didn't mention that the lie I told was to him, and none of those sins were actually true. When I was a kid being dragged through the Catholic school system, the hardest part of going to confession was making up something that made the priest think you were serious, but not serious enough that it would get back to my teachers or parents. There was no sanctity of the confessional for kids where I was. My usual option was to say I'd sinned by arguing with my parents. Actually true, and passable to the priest. As an aside, if you want your kids to end up as atheists, send them to a Catholic school for 12 years. If that doesn't convince you that God doesn't exist, nothing will. Priest at the next Mass. Love thy neighbors. Also, it seems the amount of religious followers is dropping. Does anybody have suggestions? Quote, narrowly avoided having Easter and Christmas Eve free to do as you wish. I was raised Catholic, but was lucky to find older priests who had traveled and had a broad mindset. Whenever I spoke of my doubts, they were happy to answer. They couldn't always convince me, but we had really interesting conversations. Sadly, the whole Roman Catholic thing becomes just rites of passage, a part of our culture. I think he misdirected his anger. It should have been at your parents, and he probably was glad this came to light before you'd gone through with the sacraments. People who go through, or in this case, make their children go through the motions of receiving sacraments just to get them done, make a mockery of them. You were in the right when you were refusing. I am a devout Catholic and my eldest son decided he was an atheist at age 14 and we have to respect this. Initially he still went to church with us but did not receive communion at his choice and then later decided not to attend church altogether. It is disappointing to one who wanted my children to share my faith. But he thought things through and I must respect and honor his decisions. I hope all works out for you and that your family comes to respect your beliefs. Hold up. How did you get a free suit out of it? And therein lies the trouble with so many religions and religious leaders. Intolerance of different thoughts rather than showing the love that is preached. What a bad priest, they never practice what they preach. He should have asked more question on why you don't believe instead of getting angry and pushing you away. I told my priest I wasn't sure about God and my reconciliation. Although I was only in 2 CND grade, he told me that it was completely normal for human beings to have doubts. To try to take an extra second to observe the beauty of the world, the flowers, the sun, the children. And I can worry about being sure later. I don't feel bad for that priest, I feel like he was a dick, lol. I used to run those Holy Communion classes as a teacher. There was a kind of children's workbook called the Golden Book and the kids would do some classwork. Then take the books home to complete the weekly exercises with parents. When I first did them, I was a believer. But after 20 years, I lost my faith and became an atheist. Exposure to years of hypocrisy. Most parents only participated because it was a feeder school for the very desirable secondary school they wanted their kids to attend. No communion certificate. No entry. Also, my colleagues were the biggest bunch of bigots I've ever met, and I hated them. Vile towards gay people and single moms, for example. But I needed a job. So by the end, my religious teaching was more tolerance and kindness, and less wrath of God towards sinners. I may even have skipped the more sin and guilt lessons and not mentioned hell at all. Or God. That way I could live with my conscience, and maybe some of them ended up less fed up. I went to a Catholic school for my early education. Teachers were not priests or nuns, and we were taught science correctly. Even sexual education. We just had to pray for 5 meters before class and attend a 20 meters mass once a week. When I was a teen and studying elsewhere, I went back to the school to find one of the priests, one that was the most involved with the students, and asked to have a talk. I was having doubts about believing in God and had some questions. I was honest with him. He was kind, patient, answered all my questions, and never tried to shame me or guilt me into believing. I still decided I don't believe in God, but at least I never had that bad taste in my mouth from them. People from that school were really great. Good job there on staying honest to the priest. Although one would have hoped that he would have allowed you to explain the situation a bit more precisely, considering it's probably rather odd for an atheist kid to have a communion and to go confess their sins when they don't even believe in that stuff. I feel like the second priest had an idea of what was going on, that you were kind of forced into it, especially since you didn't go to the church but to his home. So kudos to him as well for not really bothering all that much. Then again, friend of the family, those priests do tend to do stuff that regular priests do not. A relative of my father, either his uncle or grandfather, I'm not entirely sure anymore, was an atheist when he died. The family of my father wanted him to get a proper Christian burial, but the local priest didn't allow it because of the whole atheist thing. A retired priest and friend of the family was so annoyed about the whole situation that he put on his old robe and basically did the burial with all the rites and so on. Despite the protest of the current priest, on the other hand, I believe this very same priest once said to my father that being a priest is basically just a job like any other, so one has to assume that he wasn't necessarily the firmest of believers, or very chill about the whole thing. Kinda like the second priest in your story. I happened to go to a Catholic school on the same campus as a seminary college for priests. While in 7th or 8th grade, I was once asked to help out the seminarians, priests in training, while they were practicing hearing confessions by going in and essentially being their practice dummy. We could literally confess anything we wanted. It was just for the benefit of the seminarians. But it was kind of interesting to go in and go through the process without actually confessing anything. Also, this is why reform is needed in a lot of Catholic churches. Christ's message was to love. Period. Kicking someone out of church because they're atheist is the exact opposite of that. The priest's behavior towards you was unacceptable. You were a child. This is not how you treat a child. And also not how you get someone to join your faith. He can absolutely ask you to leave as you don't fulfill the requirements to be there, but he should have done so with kindness and compassion. I remember telling my RE teacher, a Protestant pastor, that I didn't believe anymore. He just smiled kindly and said, "I'll find my path." I say that priest failed you. Don't feel bad for him. Segunda persona de la que he oído que la sacan de una iglesia de forma tan grosera. La otra es mi mamá. A ella también se la aplicaron así. Pero por mentorzela al padre porque no me quería bautizar porque mi nombre no es católico y no me querían poner un segundo nombre. It is good that you did it so that your favorite uncle can also stand as padrino to you. Nobody else needs to know for now that you aren't a believer.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.